Hi, I'm Dave Randle, President and CEO of the Well Center. Today it's my pleasure to introduce my good friend and colleague, MacDonald Sembereka. I've known MacDonald for about 11 years since we met at the African Summit in Nairobi, Kenya. And since then, we've worked together in delivering food to starving children in his village in Malawi, worked on human rights issues, worked on helping orphans of HIV-Aids, and now working with him at the University of South Florida and with conservation biologists at the Walt Disney Company to make Malawi a better place. He is now a presidential advisor and brings a lot of energy and excitement and ideas to the new government. MacDonald Sembereka.
I'm currently working as an advisor to the President of the Republic of Malawi, President Joyce Banda, and my role is precisely to be a liaisonary person between NGOs and civil society and the presidency and the government at large in Malawi. So it's a pleasure to be here with friends, and I have worked closely with Global Healing, and just to say thank you for being a source of inspiration and encouragement in the times of joy and suffering that I've gone through.
Some of the things MacDonald and I have collaborated through Global Healing include delivering a container of food when a village of children were actually starving, and MacDonald single-handedly organized the receiving and distribution of that food in Malawi. Do you want to say something about that project?
Yeah, certainly I think as people may know, Malawi is one of the drought-prone countries in southern Eastern Africa, and around 2007, was that? 2007, we were affected by a severe drought, and the most affected around that time were children. So I did raise a request to Devi and to URI and the Global Healing to make sure that we got the support that we needed. It was tough going because at that time my colleagues in URI Malawi were at odds making sure that this food was not delivered because they felt they couldn't do anything. But we worked closely with David and made sure that that food arrived. It was actually up to now people are talking about it in the area, and especially the children that enjoyed that. It saved a lot of lives.
And MacDonald, you've also been a very strong advocate in Malawi and around the world for human rights, and were even a special guest of the U.S. State Department in Geneva for the UN celebration last year. Do you want to say a little about your human rights work?
Yeah, my human rights journey starts from way when I was a child, when my own father was detained when I was 5 years. I never saw my father until when I was 12. He was detained for malicious claims from the then dictatorship, and I said to myself, never again should a child of my age then suffer deprivation in the way I've suffered. And of utmost importance, I felt the issues of human rights and equality should be adhered to. To that extent, I started, much as I worked with much as I'm a priest in the Anglican Church or the Episcopal Church, I took a journey of self-actualization and realization that issues of human rights cuts across the divide, and that nobody should suffer violation of human rights. To that effect, I did take people through training in human rights. Was my first point of post in the church was at an ecumenical training center, where we trained both the laity and the clergy in social transformation. So I was actually in a very strategic position. But from then, I took a career path that ensured that I made sure that human rights was the real thing in society, and making sure that people understand what it entails. To this effect, I have really committed myself to that. I have stood up where violations have been evidenced, and to that, related to that, last year, actually, my house was firebombed by President Mutarika's loyalists, the late President Mutarika's loyalists. I'm glad to say that at least now we can see some change in Malawi, and we need to do the same across the world. So that's how I got myself in Geneva, and this time around I was also happy to link human rights and the fight against HIV.
And the fight against HIV-Aids, you've been involved in helping develop programs to care for the orphans of HIV-Aids for, I know, over 10 years, probably longer than that. And you recently were a guest speaker at the International Convention where you spoke on this topic before 20,000 people. So you are a recognized leader on this issue as well. Do you want to say some more about that work?
Yeah, the struggle with regards to HIV has taught me one thing. Sometimes you think you are not going to suffer any consequences related to the epidemic. Certainly what it has taught me is that there is a lot of correlation, and most of us are vulnerable, especially coming from countries whose prevalence rate are high. And working in the church and seeing faith-based stigma, faith-driven stigma, that has driven people underground and made sure that people do not access services, has been my major concern, to say no. Let's make sure that the church or the faith community must be a source of inspiration, encouragement, and make sure that this is a place where everybody can come and feel at home about, despite where they come from and their HIV status. And this has been my battle, and I personally have suffered the pangs of the epidemic. I've lost some of my relatives, my siblings in my own family. Of course, at that point in time, some of them, when they were passing on, we never knew that this was an AIDS-related disease. But as time went on, we realized, and I have taken on board responsibility in my own family and in the wider society of taking care of children who are orphaned to the epidemic. So this in itself has been a source of energy for me to say that let's fight HIV. I'm glad that a lot of people now know what to do, how to stop the epidemic, and perhaps how to maintain the levels that are there. And I'm glad that the world continues to commit its resources to the fight. But there is a lot that we can do together to ensure that the epidemic does not find a home in our world continuously.
I recall that when I first met you, we met at the URI Africa Summit, and you were working as a hospice chaplain in Uganda. And you had 13 children at that time you were caring for, none of which were your own, all orphans from HIV-Aids. But I also recall in our conversation that you told the story of having to find and improvise in the villages where people could not get the pain medications as they were dying in your hospice work, and how you found their spiritual traditions as a way to help relieve pain. I wonder if you can share a little of that story.
Yeah, you know, when you are in a resource-constrained society, where perhaps we don't have the luxury of facilities as the Western society is, like our friends in the US have. You need to be innovative. You need to make sure that you find some homegrown solutions to some of the challenges you encounter. And one of the things that I did find very innovative was how to link pain relief to the societies in which we come from. At the same time, to find the role of society in pain relieving, and what is it that is valuable in our cultures, in especially in the Ubuntu type of philosophy that we believe in, where you don't necessarily need to go outside of your communities, but the communities must be mobilized to provide the much needed support that you need given the circumstances that you are in. It is also quite challenging when you find that there are others who come with solutions that are perhaps external, and then you want to stick to the cultural heritage and going back to basics and making sure that the basic way of coexisting and providing remedial measures to pain and suffering is taking its place in a situation where you have huge numbers of people in suffering and in pain. The issue of accompaniment, the issue of society's role, the issue of caring by the community, the family, and you, and the traditional community tends to be very critical in that regard, because that's what we have. And that's the best, perhaps, because this person will not see it as coming from outside, but will relate to it consciously.
I remember also that same URI summit in Nairobi, that our conference site was literally across the street from the UNEP compound, and I was able to get some UNEP colleagues to come to dialogue with the URI delegates. And I remember you and I then began our conversation about the importance of the environment and its relationship to alleviation of poverty. And since then, we've talked about a number of projects, but the one I'm most currently excited about is the Liwonde National Park. The Liwonde National Park in Malawi has all of the big five: hippos, lions, water buffalo, leopards, elephants, along with 300 bird species. And one person actually set a record in 2 nights of seeing 266 of those 300 bird species. So it's a biological diversity jewel of the world. And you can visit it by river, you can visit your safari by jeep. And we've been talking about building an eco-tourism type lodge, modeling sustainability. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that project.
Malawi is rich. Looking at the natural habitat and the environment that we have, it's one of the countries that is less exploited and has a potential to demonstrate to the world how things can be done differently. And I'm encouraged that now the issue of ecotourism is at the heart of the minds of the powers that be in our own country. The leadership of Malawi is putting a lot of thoughts in ecotourism and making sure that we go into sustainable tourism as opposed to the splashy and exploitative kind of tourism, because we realize that in so doing, the economy will grow, but at the same time, you are making sure that you don't spoil what gives you what you need as a measure of growing the economy. This project, when successful, will be one major model for further expansion in Malawi. I'm mindful of some other national parks we have. We have the Lake Malawi National Park, which is, Malawi has one of the vastest lakes in the world, freshwater lake. And the Malawi National Park, Lake Malawi National Park, has a lot of fantastic beaches, but it needs to be accompanied by conservation of all types. We have Nyika Game Reserve and others. And my thoughts are this could be a model for these other areas. As I might have shared with you, government is quite anxious to make sure that we move on the right direction in this, and government is ready to provide the much needed support. The communities around are also anxious because this type of development will ensure that it takes on board the communities around. There must be ownership of the communities. Any sustainable development must take cognizance of that aspect to ensure that we don't transplant something alien to the communities. But at the same time, making the communities realize that they are responsible in ensuring that they sustain the structures that are there.
This past week, you've had several meetings with the University of South Florida, talking about water and sanitation needs in Malawi. We have meetings today on the health issues. We had wonderful meetings yesterday at Walt Disney World on conservation biology and conservation management. I'm wondering, though, if you could give our viewers some insight into what life in Malawi is like for the average Malawian and why it is so important to have this combination of sustainable development with economic development take place now.
I know for Malawi there could be a lot of excitement out there in the world. People would rush to a country like Malawi for exploitative reasons. But this kind of discussion that we've had makes sure that the best winner is a Malawian. The best winner are Malawian communities. To the extent that we are talking of sustainability, we are talking of a situation that is integrated, a project or projects that are integrated, where various players will make sure that they contribute to this cake and then focus on making sure that the environment is not destroyed. Malawians benefit out of the education, the water, and other aspects of components, the health that we are going to talk about later today, and at the same time making sure that the institutions that are also being involved are finding value for their investment, because we don't want we can't afford as a country to continue the wastages that we have seen in other countries and in previous encounters.
Well, thank you, MacDonald. It's been a pleasure being with you here today and having the opportunity for you to share with our Global Healing Network and others about your good work. You certainly are one of the true heroes of our time and somebody that I personally admire and look to for inspiration in working on these very tough issues of peace, poverty, and the planet. Is there any closing remarks you'd like to make?
Yeah, I think let me appreciate the work that Global Healing and the Well Center has been doing. We have worked closely together, and my tough times in life have been such that perhaps they were not seen to be tougher. They would have been tougher if I had no support from people like you, Davy, and others within the Global Healing community or family. And I'm looking forward to a time when this project will take off, or these projects we are discussing will take off, and perhaps demonstrate to the world that a humble beginning of this nature can mean something big, and can mean helping communities to transform. Because in so doing, we encourage peace, we encourage coexistence, we encourage, the integrity of all creation. And I'm glad that we have the support of various stakeholders. And let's make sure that the momentum is not lost. I am dumbfounded, going back home with excitement. I know I have a lot of work to do, but I commit myself to do that, and I hope the leadership of Malawi will be as supportive as ever, because we need political will as well.
Well, we look forward to your return again, and I look forward to visiting you someday in Malawi as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Don.
David. Thank you.